I'd love to do that, but I just can't. That's just silly. No one does that. How can I do that? How would I make this work? Hello everyone and welcome back to the Alternative Living podcast hosted by me and Theo, aka the Indie Projects.
It's been a long time since we've recorded a podcast.
Yeah, it has been a really long time actually. It's been 2017 we released the last podcast and now it's 2019 and you guys have been wanting it back.
It's a little bit different as well because, as you've noticed, it's just me and B. There's no other guest. We are just going to talk. And I think this podcast is going to be all about how we got started in alternative living and how we got into the van life thing, the van life scene. I don't know what you'd call it, but...
Different way of living from how we were living. And also another thing is that we're filming our podcast. Before we didn't do that. So that's been something that we wanted to do because it just adds another depth to the whole experience. I love listening to podcasts. Theo loves watching podcasts. So we've merged them together and that's where we are today.
And that's definitely feedback that we got from you guys, is that when we would upload the podcasts on YouTube, it was just a still image and it wasn't very engaging to watch. So now you can watch us, but you can also listen to us as well. So if you're on the way to work or, you know, on the road trip of your own, you want to listen to a podcast, that's what we do. So yeah, it's really good. I'm really excited. This is definitely going to be an ongoing thing and stay tuned. Lots of podcasts to come.
Yes, so we're going to dive deep into the Indie Project's history today, back to a time when we were called V-Dub Van Life.
Oh, before we get into that, I've just realised that we are the Alternative Living Podcast and things are a little bit quirky. You might have noticed the mic stands. I knocked these up this morning and they are hilarious. They're made out of pallet wood and they work perfectly fine. But we did go round a city looking for tabletop mic stands because we knew that we were going to be recording the podcast and we wanted to do it as professional as possible. But in Portugal and where we are, basically in the middle of nowhere, especially compared to where we grew up in Birmingham.
Pickings are slim.
I could have just gone down to Maplin's and got myself a tabletop mic stand and all would have been good. But you know what? I think they work and I think they look quite cool.
They look very alternative, that's for sure. And also what I thought you were going to say is, because I just realised, we're filming this from our caravan
we're in the
renovated.
Caravan. And you might have recently seen the caravan tour that B did brilliantly, renovating and showing you guys around. It's amazing. It's such an amazing space and it's hard to describe, but it's almost, we have got another room now on the land.
Yeah, this is our podcast room and when guests are here, this is their bedroom.
But like sometimes we come in here and we work. I mean, it's only been finished for like a matter
like just
of
over
weeks.
a week.
Yeah, so yeah,
we literally finished
a week.
it the day before we went and collected Mom. So she stayed in here for a week and she's been gone a couple of days. So
the last
it's
couple
not
of
been
days,
long.
We have been using it as like an office. I'll come in here with my laptop, do some work. You'll do the same. And it's a really nice space. There's something special about it. It just feels very calm and it's very hot as well.
Yeah, it's hot right now. We've had to shut the windows because obviously we are doing a podcast. So sound is important. And it's getting a bit hot, but we will persevere. We've got our water on hand, so we're going to be fine.
It's 22 degrees outside. So
and we're in a caravan.
I can't even imagine what it is inside, but I'm sweating.
I'm sweating.
Right, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we were V-Dub Van Life.
Yes.
Some of you guys might not even know that.
Some of you guys might. We do have a lot of people who were here from the very beginning, which is amazing. Thank you for sticking with us for 5 years nearly now.
A
nearly
long time.
5 years.
That's amazing. Like the support that we've had on YouTube and all the other social media platforms has been immense. Like you guys are the reason we're here. And also, before we fully get into it, I just want to say thank you to all of our patrons, because they make this podcast possible. We could almost say this podcast is sponsored by our patrons, because, without them, we wouldn't have the, funds to sit down and make this happen, really. So thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you very much. Today's podcast has been sponsored by our patrons. So big shout out to all of you. Thank you very, very much.
So yeah, VW Van Life started off. How did it start off?
I think firstly, some people might not even understand what the name VW Van Life is. VW is short for VW. We had a VW transporter, but why did we get that? Where did that come from?
So I worked a 9 to 5. So I got this job at a production company, and so I'd be filming, editing. I was kind of like an all-round person there. And I've never really done a 9 to 5 though in that industry, and how I wanted to grow my career. I'd always work after work. So I'd go in, I'd do the traditional 9 to 5 at the production company, and then I'd have jobs lined up afterwards as well. And it just took its toll on me in the end. Like, it was very, very hard work. Not actually as hard work as being a YouTuber full time, but it was very, very hard work. And you were away, wasn't you? You were in Spain.
Before this, though.
Before this?
He's forgotten. I remember things. The Berlingo
We had
years.
the Berlingo, yeah.
And we would go, every time you had time off, we would go off in the Berlingo. That was our first foray into van life. Van life. I mean, it wasn't really a van, but whatever.
Okay, yeah. It was. So you can get a Berlingo van, or you can get a Berlingo car version, and we had the car version, and we blacked out all the windows.
Oh yeah, we did.
And we were working out of my nan's garage. We had minimal tools, no experience.
It was hilarious. It was a lot of fun, a lot of stress.
What? I wish we had photos. Of how that conversion looked, because it was so basic. That
was bodged.
But
bodged with love. There was a lot of love in that, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
But that just shows you, doesn't it? Like, we had a Berlingo that I think I paid, £400 for?
I can't remember.
I think it was something like that. But it was an amazing van. It was so fun to drive. I don't know why it was so fun to drive, but it was just a really good van.
But that was our first dip into travelling in a vehicle. Before that, we'd always been staying in motels and tents. And it got to the stage where we were kind of like, Theo really wanted to get into rough camping in a tent. And I was just like, you know what? As someone who gets a little bit anxious about things, the idea of staying in a tent on someone else's land illegally or whatever it was, because in my head, but you know what I mean? That makes it sound really crazy, but like just pitching up somewhere where
you're allowed to wild camp.
Yeah, but when you're so normal, you think that like you can only camp in a campsite. Yeah. So for me, it was like camping anywhere outside of a campsite was just like, whoa, no. So you were the one who was into that. I don't like the term rough camping though. That's what you called it back then.
Did I?
Yeah, in 2013, you called it rough camping.
Well, back then I used to shower every day. I'm a changed man.
So you wanted to do that, and I was just no. So, but you were adamant what you wanted to do. You went out there, you got this tent, you got all the gear, and then you never, ever went and used it, except in the garden,
which is so bizarre, because you know me as a person. Obviously, we've been together a long time. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
You got so far, and then you were like, hang on, there's more to this. And somehow you must have stumbled upon...
I think maybe a forum or something.
You were a part of a forum where you were posting pictures of this Berlingo conversion. You were like, I'm going to get this Berlingo, I'm going to convert it. And you know what? You did it pretty fast. You uploaded the photos wherever they are now.
Had a tiny little sink. I think I used a bowl as a sink.
It did. It had a sink. It had a kitchen. It had everything.
Probably smaller than the sink we've got now in the Sprinter.
It was so tiny. Oh, gosh, yeah. I think it might have actually been bigger. But... when you got the van, that's when you were like, well, we can both stay in this. And I was a little bit more like, okay, because if it does go horribly wrong and someone's like, get out of here in the middle of the night, because that's what I thought would happen, we could drive away. And that made way more sense to me than having to pack up a tent and run.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of shoehorned me into going along with you.
And it was small.
Oh, it was tiny. Your feet were on the dashboard at night. Theo's 6'3" in a Berlingo.
all of our stuff, like we had no storage room, because basically it was just a bed, with a little sink unit where we could cook and stuff like that. And yeah, we just had to put everything on the front seats, didn't we?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it any other way though, because doing it in that van with such basic amenities really did highlight the things that we did need and that I would want in the future. There were times where I would get frustrated, I can't pour my pasta water down the sink. This is so annoying having to open the door. Or
you've gone from like growing up in a city, having everything at your disposal,
to suddenly not.
To basically just being in the middle of nowhere in a Berlingo.
Cooking on a tiny little camping stove. It was horrible. I hated it now. I didn't really hate it. But things like that, little inconveniences that they're actually worth dealing with because you are on an adventure and it's really exciting and it doesn't cost anything because now you've done the van, you've got somewhere to stay wherever you want to go. You can stay wherever you want. And we first went off in the van in the Berlingo. You know what? I was going to say it was Wales, but it might have actually been Dungeness.
Yeah, I think it was Dungeness.
Yeah.
And Dungeness like a special place for us, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful.
And it's a really cool place, but it's
weird.
It's strange. It's got like a nuclear power point there. It's very quiet and eerie. It was a really cool place to go in a van.
It was.
But it was actually the first place we stayed and the last place we stayed
in the VW
on our VW T4 adventures that we'll come on to
later on in the show, maybe not today, but
rewinding a little bit, or fast forwarding, so you were working in Spain volunteering on a conservation project to do with birds.
Yes, this was about 6 months after the Berlingo adventures happened,
and even that was alternative because I
was living on a farm in rural Spain.
Very basic.
Oh yeah, it was very basic accommodations, but it was wonderful. The people I lived with there were absolutely amazing. There's people from all walks of life. We were all there because we had a passion for the environment, bird life. We were working on organic rice. It was honestly one of the best experiences of my life, and that kind of triggered inside me a realization that actually, you know what? I don't have to pursue the dream that was right now of getting a full-time job so I could buy a house. That was literally, I wanted to get a full-time job so I could get a house. That was all I was working towards.
Before this, we were looking at apartments to buy and, it was a very different us.
And it sounds really silly, but I remember thinking like, I'd love to do that, but I just can't. That's just silly. No one does that. How can I do that? How would I make this work? And then it's just bizarre that Theo back in the UK is having the same thoughts.
Well, you came home and I was like, we're gonna move into a van and go travelling, and you were like, nah.
No,
you wasn't into
it. The Berlingo's hideous.
Exactly, because in your mind it was like living in the Berlingo.
Yeah. Which wouldn't have worked.
And as good as the Berlingo was at getting us started, it wasn't to be lived in full time.
I mean, don't get me wrong, we'd gone all the way over to France in it and wild camped around France.
Scotland and
Wales. But the thought of going around Europe for a year, because that was the goal. We were like, we're going to go around Europe for a year. I was just like, well, we're not going in that. It has to be a van that I can stand up in. It has to have a bathroom. So we immediately started looking. Once you persuaded me, I don't think it took that long. I can't remember how you persuade me.
It wasn't long at all. As anything with me, if I say I'm going to do it, like literally, we probably bought the van like 2 weeks later. Well,
I remember it did all happen very fast. We decided we were going to do it and we went for it. But we were looking at first. I was like, I want a motorhome. I want a proper thing that's going to have all the mod cons that I need. And then, you know what? It's hilarious because I'm actually the one who found the T4 at the same time as your uncle found it. We both found it and I didn't realise and he didn't realise I'd found it.
Yeah.
So he'd told you about it. And you showed me and I was like, oh, I looked at that. I thought that was really nice. Yeah, it's a T4 that you can't stand up in and doesn't have a bathroom, but you could fit a porta potty in there.
Any of the criteria, did it?
No.
Like, not at all, but it was a very solid van.
Oh, the best.
Like, that van is amazing. Like, it did us so well. We had probably one issue with it pretty much.
Oh, and it was irritating.
It was a pretty big issue, but we got it sorted, and it was more of a big issue to do with where we were in the world.
Oh, yeah. But we'll get back to that later on in the show. We don't want to give that away just yet. That's something that happened whilst we were on our travels.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you guys will have T4s and
Yeah.
T5s, and they are
There was a big
amazing vans.
There was a big love for transporters out there.
Yeah.
They are brilliant.
They're great. Our T4 was very reliable.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good size. It meant that we could go anywhere, which was definitely something that was in our criteria. You know, we didn't want to not be able to go down that small lane and explore different places. So that was definitely really important to us.
It was. And so we got the van, and then it was just a case of get rid of everything. Let's just get rid of everything. Let's get rid of the Bilingo. We stripped that out. We sold that. Actually,
So
that's
it was like,
weird.
What, charity shops?
Well, yeah, I'd gone to a car boot sale
eBay.
in the Bilingo, and someone was like, "You selling the van as well?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually." And so there we go. It was all sold, all
They
done and
literally
dusted.
came that evening
day,
and
got
brought
it.
the van.
So that was brill.
I had another car as well.
And I had a car.
Yeah,
had all the cars.
we did. We had three vehicles between us. So I had an Audi A3. You had a
Daewoo
Daewoo
Kalos.
Kalos, and we had the Bilingo. So we literally sold all of them, and we bought the T4.
So
And also
yeah.
that left. Obviously, we had more savings, so we had enough money to go travelling for like a year and a half.
Yeah, we budgeted for a year. That was the plan.
But there wasn't much about in terms of like blogs and vlogs. It wasn't like it is now. The information was not out there.
So new. It was so new that the van life hashtag on Instagram had hardly any posts on there at all.
How
It was
do you know
so
how much to
fresh.
spend back then? Like, how much do you know how to budget? Obviously, there's lots of people like us now who are sharing their budgets of how much they spend per month on the road. And it's a lot easier now.
Yeah.
But back then it was like we just made a budget up and tried to stick to it, and we did stick to it.
We did. We stuck to our budget religiously. I also remember before we went off into van life watching a lot of YouTube, and all I can remember from watching YouTube videos back then in 2014, they were all American van lifers. So they were brilliant to watch, but it still wasn't completely relative to where we were going to be going and what we were going to be doing. There was some blogs, and the blog that I went to the most, and I'm going to say it now because like I fangirled when I met them.
They're legends.
They are legends. Europe by Camper. Their blog was amazing. I scoured that every single day, and they created Motorhome Wifi, which was brilliant as well, which is brilliant. We use their products.
We're using it on our current van. We used it on our van before we used it on a T4 and now on our Sprinter as well.
Yeah, so we
amazing stuff.
Their blog was a massive help to me. They travelled all around Europe to loads of the places we were going, so I got quite a lot of information from them, but it was blogs. Like trying to find it was hard, but we did it, and we had a blast.
It was so good. Like, I don't even know where to start because we didn't really have a route plan at all, really.
No, we were just going to Scandinavia, Lofoten Islands for your birthday in August.
I'd Googled the Lofoten Islands. And
I remember looking at them on
Google.
Google Maps and being like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. We'd drop a pin on Google, you can do Street View, and we'd drop a pin and we're just mountains everywhere. We're like, we need to go here. And Googling images and stuff, which obviously you can do now, but now it's all on Instagram, and you can, which also is another topic for another time because it can also ruin places if it gets too crowded and whatnot. And I know the Lofoten Islands are very busy now compared to what they were when we went there.
Mm-hmm.
But things change, it happens, and more people have found it, and that doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing.
No, it doesn't. Tourism can bring places back to life. So it's not always a bad thing. It's just how it's managed, really. But going back to our trip, we left in June. I don't remember the exact day anymore, but we spent the first night in Dungeness because it was not that far away from the Channel Tunnel, that we then scooted across straight into France and went straight to Belgium that very day.
The thing is, when we travel, we don't travel slow.
We only thought we had a year, so we were like, we need to go. We don't travel. We tend to only stay one night in a location, maybe two. Yeah.
We get itchy feet. We just want to see all the different places, because when you park up in a beautiful area, there might be a more beautiful area down the road, and it's kind of like weighing up whether we should move on or should we hang around. So we moved quite quickly. We did a lot of miles.
We did do a lot of miles, and because this was 2014 and it was the thing to do, we had set up a travel blog called VDub Van Life. So that's where it came from. That's why we came up with the name VDub Van Life. We wanted to document our travels.
But it sounds a cliche thing, doesn't it? But yeah, it's for our family to see what we're getting up to.
It was for our family.
But like even back then, I don't even think there were like, was WhatsApp a thing? I don't even think it was.
WhatsApp was a thing.
Was it?
It was a thing.
Did we have wooden phones?
Did phones exist in 2014?
It's a joke.
I don't know if they did.
Anyway, the technology wasn't what it was now.
No.
Especially with like social media apps and stuff like that. So it wasn't as easy to share. You know, the internet wasn't even as good as it is now. When we were on the Scottish Highlands.
Oh my gosh.
I had to download literally our vlogs that we were doing and post them back to my mum
on a memory card,
on a memory stick,
memory stick,
a memory stick, and she would upload them onto YouTube for us
in Birmingham, where they still have pretty crap internet actually. Because when we go there, it's like this is crap.
So fast forward, and obviously we're living in Portugal now, and the internet in Portugal is amazing. Mm-hmm. We have 4G on our land, like stunningly fast internet. We do all of our business from our land, so we've been doing lately we've been doing a lot of Skype calls and stuff.
We have, and that's been a bit scary because I've been a bit like, are we going to run out of data?
But midway? Turns out our signal is better than the signal in London.
Yeah, so that's just, rural Portugal is where it's at for the good internet. It's
They're
where
like,
it's at.
How is it so clear? And we're just like,
4G booster, baby.
Yeah, good. Yeah, again, Motorhome Wi-Fi, 4G booster. That's a good plug.
But yeah, so the internet, like I know we keep going on about it, but this is how we make a living, and it's not how we made a living back then, but it's how we wanted to stay connected. So internet was not the same as it is now. You couldn't just go over to Europe and use your phone like you can now, which is crazy that in 5 years it's changed so much for the better. Back then, if we wanted to use data on our phone, Theo's phone could get data, mine couldn't because I was with Virgin. O2, you could get data for €3 a day. Apparently it was unlimited, but it'd be capped at like 100 meg
so
or something.
Annoying, like 100 megabytes. I'd literally lie in bed, watch like a minute of like a video.
I don't even think you'd watch a video because
Really?
we'd be like, we don't have the internet for that.
I just remember like going on my phone for 5 minutes and then it just slows to a point where you're like, is it even working?
Yeah.
Probably not.
But it is kind of crazy when you think about technology. Like back in the day when our parents went travelling, like when your dad went to America when he was really young and went on a road trip. Yeah, it wasn't like that. So it's funny. People will be listening to this and being like, oh, you're complaining about this, that and the other, but that's just our story. It's how we've grown up in this generation of kind of like just fast forwarding through things so fast. Like iPhones have only been around for just over a decade, and now they are with us all the time. They are part of our lives, and because of this is how we make a living, which is insane.
You've got everything you need at your fingertips now on your phone. It's bizarre. It's almost like no excuses not to document or.
But also, it's impossible to turn off. But we can talk about that another time.
Yeah, that's another kind of business related.
We will do
how YouTube works.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a podcast about how we make a living online. But we never set out to be able to make a living online. We had the blog. We documented what we did.
And I think that's the key. Like a lot of people.
And it was a passion project.
Like I don't want to come across big-headed or cocky, but a lot of people say we're very natural, which is really nice because this is who we are. We don't try and be someone we're not. And, that's the kindest thing to say to us because, I believe it is true. We are quite natural.
Yeah.
And that's important, I think.
Definitely. Like if you're putting on an act, but you're pretending that you're being you,
you're going to get
that's
tired
not going to work
quickly.
Yeah, you are going to get exhausted. And I know we meet people all the time, people bumping to us in the street. And if you're putting on an act, they're going to know. Yeah, we did meet a guy yesterday. It was really nice. Really nice to meet him. Hello, Pedro.
We were literally just like in the supermarket and we left the supermarket and we were going down the escalators and he was just like,
I want to shake your hand.
Yeah, can I shake your hand? And I was like,
Okay.
Yeah, I knew who it was. You know, we get spotted quite a lot. So when someone says that, you kind of like, well, I don't think it's just a randomer who just wants to shake my hand because I've got massive hands. But he was really nice, and it was so nice. And he sent us an email this morning, and he kind of followed that up as well. He's like, oh, you're just like how you are in your videos, which, you know, is so lovely to hear.
Yeah. So we've always stuck true to ourselves, been ourselves, just been us, but online. And I really enjoyed doing that blog. So it was a great thing to be able to document our travels, because I look back at what we did and it was insane.
So one of the things about the blog that was really good is that I really got into photography. Like, I'd always been into photography. My dad used to take photos. He used to, you know, let me use his camera when I was small. And I'd always loved photography. And it comes hand in hand with being a filmmaker, I guess. You know, it's the same thing, kind of. It's a moving image, not a still image, but it's a very similar thing with like composition, you know, with the framing and that kind of thing. So for me, I learnt so much on the road as well. It wasn't just about, you know, going and not doing anything, because I can't not do anything. Like, I have to have something to do. So we learnt so much. Like, we learnt about, you know, fitness and hiking. We learnt about, you know, taking photos. It's incredible. So if you do want to kind of explore a hobby or something, going traveling in a van is definitely a good reason to do that, because you have all the time to do it.
I'd never really written much before, and having the blog to go with your photos, I was writing every single day. I actually kept a diary, a handwritten diary every single day for the whole time that we were on the road, all the way back into the UK, and using that as a reference point for the blog post was really helpful. And it also made me really look into the places we were going to, which was wonderful, because we did have all this spare time. We'd given up our jobs, we weren't working anymore, we were literally just traveling, we weren't trying to work, we were just enjoying ourselves. And it just morphed into this thing. Eventually we were doing articles for magazines. We started writing for VW Bus magazine, so Theo's images were going in there.
It was really cool to see like your images in print. Like, that's always like something that you want to achieve. You know, seeing your images in a magazine is very different to seeing them on a computer screen.
It's kind of, it's mind-blowing actually. I remember we went back to the UK in the September for your sister's wedding, and I went to WH Smith's.
Well, let's just talk about that trip.
Hang on, wait. We can talk about that, but I'm saying about the magazine. We went to WH Smith's, me and my sister and my mum, and there was VW Bus Mag, and we were on the front cover, and I opened it up, and there I was in a real life magazine, because we hadn't physically seen them because we'd been on the road the whole time. They'd been sending obviously an issue that we'd written to each month to the house, to Theo's parents' house, but we hadn't seen them. So to actually go into a shop and to see a magazine that you're in is...
It was cool.
It was so cool.
I think it's probably the first thing we did. We were like, let's go to WH Smith's and see the magazine in person, because I think maybe my parents had sent us images.
Oh yeah, we'd seen images, but we'd not. But it's not different to the physical thing.
You want to hold that magazine in your hand.
Yeah, you do.
So coming back to what I was just when I butted in, my sister, she was getting married, and we were a long way away, but we wasn't going to miss the wedding.
We were a long way away. Understatement of the year.
So we were actually in the Lofoten Islands.
We were 68 degrees north in the Arctic Circle of Norway.
So if I remember correctly, we had to get a ferry.
No?
We had to get a ferry from the Lofoten Islands over to
Buda, where we spent a night in the airport car park. Don't think that means we were flying. Hell no, we weren't flying. We were leaving our van there.
We wish we were flying.
I wish we'd flown. I don't know why we didn't fly.
Because you're on a budget.
Yes,
things
that's
are,
true.
you know, we're travelling. Like, if it was now, we have an income, so we could fly back.
So we left our van.
Then, no.
I remember we stealth parked.
That ferry ride
I don't think they really cared that we were there.
Is one hell of a...
The ferry ride from Moskenes to Buda is... churn worthy is a good use of word for it. I didn't vomit ever on that ferry ride. That was a different one. But
so the reason we were at the airport is because we were dropping off the van.
Our home, our pride and joy, it had to be somewhere secure, even though we're in Norway, the Arctic Circle, probably the lowest crime rate in the universe.
It was just a normal car park.
It wasn't even barriered.
Usually if you park in the UK, you'd pay for secure parking and it's behind a barrier. Maybe it's got a security guard. And
security cameras, but lights.
That far north, it's so relaxed.
It's like, why would I want to steal an old VW?
There's no crime. Yeah, they're all rolling around in Teslas. So it's not a problem.
Anyway, our home was more important to us than anyone else. So
but we left it in the car park at the airport.
Walked over to the train station and thus began a 20-hour train ride.
2 separate trains.
2 10-hour trains all the way down from Arctic Norway to Oslo. And that, my friends, is the sickest.
And then did we fly from Oslo?
Yeah, we did. But it's a bit more traumatic than that.
We've done that journey twice, I think.
No, wait. The train journey was gorgeous, right?
So we had to get back as well. So we had to do it
We had to do it the reverse. We had to go back, and that was probably worse because we knew it was coming. Because obviously we didn't have a sleeper cabin because we couldn't afford it. So we had to just sleep on our chairs. Comfy. But no, we're like, you know what? It's 20 hours sleeping in an upright chair. That's nothing. Get to the airport. Oh, yeah, but the flight's not until tomorrow. So we've got to stay at the airport on a wooden bench. With no food, because I can't afford to buy the food here because it's very expensive at the airport.
Seriously,
we're in the middle of nowhere.
Norway's expensive, but Norwegian airports, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Like you're going to spend like £50 on a sandwich.
So I think we had a bulk packet of custard creams that we were ever so slowly working our way through. And then we got on our flight.
But if you do want to
landed in London.
If you want to go on a diet, just go to Norway because you just can't afford the food anyway.
It's expensive.
But don't let that put you off going to Scandinavia because Scandinavia is expensive, but it's one of the most beautiful places that we've ever been. And it's so good for vans. So I definitely recommend going to Scandinavia. We've met up with so many people and we're like, oh, have you been to Scandinavia? Oh, no, it's too expensive. But we managed on exactly the same budget that we had for the rest of Europe in Norway.
Yeah, and if you're in a van, you haven't got to pay accommodation. Yeah, exactly. You haven't got to pay accommodation because you're in your van. We didn't stay in a campsite the whole time we were in Sweden or Norway. We stayed at one campsite in Copenhagen because we flattened our battery and had to plug into mains. And that actually did help the battery. I know that they say a dead battery is never going to come back to life, but somehow we brought that back to life.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
But what was I saying? So, yeah, we got off the flight. We were in the UK. We rented a car, drove on the wrong side of the road. That was shocking. And made it to the wedding alive.
We flew into Heathrow.
No, it was Stansted.
One of the big airports in London. And
London.
I just came driving out. Luckily, it was just like a slip road, completely on the wrong side. Because it's so easy to drive on the other side of the road in Europe.
Actually, that's a good thing to talk about. It's just
normal. Like, it's really easy. It's normal. It's a lot quieter than the UK is.
Oh, yeah.
But going back.
It's hard. Wow. I always struggle to go back to
really tricky.
To driving on the correct side in the UK because obviously we have our UK vehicle here with us in Europe, which is a right-hand drive. And a lot of people have wondered why we didn't get a left-hand drive if they knew we were going to be spending all this time in Europe. Why on earth would you get a right-hand drive? And it really doesn't make much of a difference for me.
No, and finding a Sprinter in the UK
that's a left-hand drive
that met the criteria that we wanted was hard enough on its own, let alone going, okay, I want a left-hand drive. Well, that narrows it down to one van in the whole of the UK and you have to have that one. So that was definitely out of the question.
Yeah. So that was a little crazy little story about when we were in the Arctic Circle. But as far as we were talking about on our travels, we haven't made it to the Arctic Circle yet, but Theo's rushing ahead.
No, just saying we had to do that journey all the way back.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you guys have watched, but we have a hiking documentary. We hiked the Kungsleden, which is a 440-kilometre hike
in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, through Arctic Sweden. It was one of the best experiences of our lives, definitely.
And to make it even better, when we got the 20-hour train ride up there, We had a sleeper cabin. So that was like pure luxury.
It was. But
even though we had to share it with two
again,
strangers as well as our two friends.
Yeah, so we had to do another 20-hour train journey. And I'm not a big fan of trains, I'm not going to lie.
They're boring.
But it was like when we'd finished the Kungsleden, it was okay coming back because we just completed a 440-kilometre hike. Everything was good.
It was okay, but it also wasn't because it meant like an 18-hour coach ride. But gosh, we just love these extra long journeys on public transport.
The train broke down or something?
No, there was no train from where we were. You had to get a coach, or there was no train on that day and you couldn't fly. It was too expensive. You know, I absolutely love planning things, so I will look into every single way of getting somewhere or getting out of somewhere. Can I fly? Can I drive? Can I get a train? Can I get a coach? Can I get a bus? What can I do? And how much is it all going to cost? And how long is it all going to take? And then what's the best one to do out of that? So that's why we got the coach.
I think that's a good segue, though, because very roughly, we travelled around Europe. We went back, didn't we? And we met friends in Germany on our kind of like way back almost. Like it was like coming to the end of our trip when we met the friends in Germany. Yeah. And they suggested the Kungsleden hike, and we were all over it. We were like, yes, we're doing it.
We were kind of reaching this stage where we were like, what the hell do we do? Because it's been a year now, and I don't want to go back to a normal job. I don't want to go live in a house. I want to live in my van still, but I can't picture doing that in the UK.
Everyone who does it, you know, I doubt they want to just go back to their old life. And for us, the Kungsleden came about and we were staying in all these, we did camp, but if you watch the documentary, there are cabins, and we were staying in these beautiful wooden cabins in the mountains. And we were like, I will move back to the UK if we can figure something like that out. Well, we brought a floating cabin, which was our narrowboat. So that was kind of like a next step of alternative living on the water.
That was stage 2.
And we did that for 3 years.
Yeah, we did. And it was brilliant.
It was amazing.
It was really brilliant.
Really enjoyed it.
I think a lot of people in the UK, everyone in the UK knows what a narrowboat is. And I think a lot of people harboured the dreams to go and live in one because it seems so idyllic. And you know what, it is. But it wasn't as idyllic as it seemed. But that's not to say that I wouldn't go back to that.
No, like the narrowboat was great.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can go many places. The network is massive.
Oh, yeah.
It's not as vast as obviously a van. Like for us, a van will win over the narrowboat because
we do have a video all about
narrowboat versus van life, because we can just go anywhere. Like we can drive to New Zealand if we really want to, which we do really want to.
I want to drive everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, the narrowboat was great. I really enjoyed our time on a narrowboat, and that just helped us gain momentum for our next project.
Yeah, but going way back still to... So now we've decided to do this trip. We are on the road in our VW and we're heading north. We're taking photos, we're writing blog posts, and we're kind of already a little bit like, this is brilliant and I love it, and we're on a budget. I don't know if we've actually said what the budget was. We've mentioned it a few times. I obviously remember it because I had a budget book. I had a video all about my budgeting that you can watch on our channel, youtube.com/theindieprojects. And so our budget was £350 for food, activities, you know, that included going to restaurants, if we had to get the bus, if we wanted to go to the cinema, buy any clothes, anything, that was it. And the rest, which I think was £400, was fuel. And that sounds like a lot of money.
That comes back to we drive a lot.
Yeah, so that's what we did. We drove a lot. Like Theo said earlier at the beginning of the podcast, we never really spent more than one night in one place. We had however many countries to go to in a year. Yeah. So we were like, that's going to be the biggest expense. £400 a month on fuel. How much would it cost to stay in a hotel for 5 days?
Yeah, exactly. So it puts it all into perspective.
2 people living off £750 a month.
I always say this to people. You can't find hotels in these places. So, like, if you drive down a dirt track and stay next to a beautiful lake, there's not a hotel there. So you're never going to experience them, even if you're in a 5-star hotel. Van life gives you that opportunity to stay pretty much anywhere you like.
Yeah, and we have stayed pretty much anywhere we like. We've stayed in supermarket car parks, we've stayed in airports, we've stayed in VW garages, we've stayed in... Where else have we stayed? I'm trying to think of some crazy places where we've stayed. We've stayed on the street, like outside places where you don't want to be, but you've got to be there. We've stayed in ferry ports.
It's all part of the process, isn't it? I think
stayed in McDonald's car parks.
Another thing we always tell people is don't try and find the perfect place to stay every single night, because you can't do that and you'll tire yourself out. So
you will.
Sometimes you just have to give a little and park in an industrial estate because you're on the way to somewhere.
Our first night on the road in America, Walmart.
Yeah,
we were in Walmart. Well, we tried to. They kicked us out, but we tried to stay in Walmart for the first night in America. We got kicked out, so we were on the street, but it doesn't matter.
He was all right.
Pretty much, I think we stayed in like 2 Walmarts that whole trip, or maybe 3. I felt like we actually stayed in Walmart an awful lot, but most of the time we were in really cool
like
places.
3 nights
so
in 3 weeks.
You've got to take, life's not Instagram. It's not YouTube. It's not the things you see online. There's always going to be some bits that aren't always perfect and beautiful, but it's the journey. It's the fact that you have chosen to do this, traveling around Europe in a year. We chose to do that. We chose to stay in the places we stayed at, and we had our home with us, and it was wonderful. But I think what we should do is we'll do a podcast all about, I think, wild camping and tips and tricks.
We get a lot of emails every day. Well, not every day about this topic, but we do get a lot of emails every day. We get emails about, like, how do you feel about wild camping? Like, how do I get it out my mind that, I'm nervous about it, I've got anxiety.
Isn't it illegal in this country?
Isn't it illegal
in that country?
It's really not as hard as it sounds, but we will probably do a video or podcast all about it.
Yeah, because we wild camped in every single country we've ever been to.
Yes.
Literally.
But leading on to, like, where we're at now, because that basically brings us up to where we're at now. So it was Berlingo, VW T4, narrowboat, Mercedes Sprinter, and our land, which a lot of people ask us how big it is. 5 acres in Portugal, and we love it here.
We do. It's really nice to have a base because
we've been travelling for so long.
We haven't had an actual base. Like, we had like parents' houses who we'd go back to and see when we were in the UK, but it wasn't like ours. Do you know what I mean? Like, my parents are there, but that's
space.
it. Like, this is ours. We've got all our junk.
All of our stuff's here. Yeah, all of our junk's here.
Somehow, even though we sold everything, we've still got junk. Try and figure that out.
But no, it's so good. Like, I've enjoyed being on the land so much because I've been building stuff. I've been learning new skills. Again, like, new skills. Like, just living in life is just like, you just learn stuff. Do you know what I mean, though? I built the cabin. I built the wood-fired bath. Like, there's lots of other things.
Built the Mercedes Sprinter interior?
Mercedes Sprinter. So if I was to do them things again, like, it just gets easier every time.
Yeah, it does. I mean, just think the Berlingo versus the Sprinter. There's a bit of a big difference. Oh, and people might be thinking, what about the T4? We bought that as a ready converted van. It wasn't
if you remember,
a proper camper van by VW. It was a converted van from a conversion company.
Because people message us this as well and send us emails about this. It's like, should I build a van or should I buy a ready-made van?
I think time really plays into that.
Time is so important. And if you've only got a year and it's going to take you 4 months to convert a van or 3 months to convert a van, then I'd just buy it ready-made because that time travelling is so important. I don't know anyone who's looked back on their life and said, well, their near future, near history of life, and said, oh, that was really good converting that van, and the travel side came after the converting the van. I think travelling is the end goal, isn't it? So the van is just the vessel to travel and not vice versa. So I think if you can just get a van and go travel, do that. Don't spend all your time building a van.
I'm definitely happy that we did that. I'm happy that we did it that way. It worked for us really well.
It was only classed as like a day van.
Yeah.
What is a day van? That opens up a whole like can of worms, doesn't it? Because like, why have you got a bed in a day van? I know it's just a
have a
term.
nap in the middle of the day in my van, and then I want to go home and sleep in my house.
Yeah, like, do you just go out for the day, have a nap,
cook up some sandwich, cook a sandwich?
I think basically what they mean is a maybe slightly more basic version of a camper van. Maybe.
Yeah, like it could have a bit more. It could maybe have.
It could have more storage.
It could maybe have a heater.
It had loads of storage.
Oh my gosh, so much storage. I don't even understand how we managed to. Loads of people have T4s and roof boxes, but we managed to do it without. And I'm just kind of a bit like, how? It
was full. It was very full. Now we can't even fill the Sprinter. We've got
the boot
not enough stuff to fill.
Empty.
Like someone could live in our boot, our garage area. Like if anyone comes to visit, just stick them in the garage.
There's one of the heaters goes into the garage, so it does stay warm. It's not cold.
See, that's another topic we could talk about. All about our heating setup and what gadgets we've got in our new van.
Yeah, if you've got anything,
could compare our old van to our new van and what it had and why we got it.
If anyone's got any like burning topics they'd like us to cover, or you've got a question or whatever, do comment somewhere. I was gonna. This isn't a YouTube. Well, it is a YouTube video, so comment below this video or
comment on
somewhere.
YouTube, but maybe Instagram's probably the best one. So go find us on Instagram, the Indie Projects. We're posting on there all the time. So go leave us a comment on there or send us a message, and we'll kind of note down the most suggestions or the best suggestions. And we will do some more.
All right, how long have we got left of this podcast? Because irritatingly, we can only record it for so long and then it cuts out.
Yeah, so this camera that we're filming on, you can only record for 30 minutes at a time. So you might see a weird cut, where I've had to scramble over the table, stop recording and start recording again. But it's all part of the process. We're doing it on our vlogging camera. I have got more professional cameras that I could do it on, but I want the podcast to be as simple as possible, because then we will do more of them. If it's an easy process and it's an easy setup, we'll just do more of them, which is better for you guys. It's better for us. I did think about, I've got all these other cameras and I thought, maybe I could have like 4 different angles and I could cut between them, and I'm going to see how it goes with one camera.
The more complicated it is, the less likely you are to do it. Well, I would anyway.
Because I think this kind of setup, it looks nice. You can see us. But it means that, I haven't got to go around and manage 4 different cameras and get stressed in the heat. And anyway, off topic.
Yeah, just a little bit, but not really, because it was about
behind
the podcast. Behind the scenes of the podcast. So what I wanted to say, I thought it was a spider, but it's a bit of thread. So this podcast, we revived it. It's back to life.
It's back.
It's no longer RIP Alternative Living Podcast. It is hello, happy birthday, back. We're back. And we've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about.
It's been fun, actually. Like, this talk, like,
it has been fun.
It's nice to just sit down and talk with you,
which is hilarious, because we are together all day, every day, and then he says things like that. But we
don't have conversations like this.
No,
like we don't sit down at dinner and be like,
we actually don't talk to each other ever. This is the first time we've spoken for a year and a half.
But it'd be weird if we sat down and kind of
discuss
did an
things like this
in-depth situation, like, of our time on the road. Like, that'd be weird.
That would be weird. Like, why would we do that? But because we're doing it on microphones and on a camera, it feels
like, more normal.
I know there's people watching this now, so even though I can't see you, hello. But, like I was going to say, we're going to have a lot of exciting topics to talk about. We've got some really big plans. This year's going to be...
Guys, this year...
absolutely crazy.
It's mental.
I wish I could tell you everything that's going to be happening,
it's crazy.
I can't. It's going to, some things like Scandinavia.
It's going to be insane.
It's going to be
There's
like
other stuff that we are doing, and we have so much stuff that we want to do, and we can't wait to show you.
I don't think a year's enough time. Basically.
A year goes so fast. Like, how long have we been on the land now?
10 years.
And there's a lot of people who kind of who do comment to us, who maybe aren't as nice as the other people who send us comments and telling us that we've hardly done anything on the land and stuff like that. But trust me, we've done a lot. And next winter, when we come back to the land, we are going to be digging deep, and we are going to be converting our barn into a beautiful stone cottage.
Yes, it's getting done.
So yeah, that's going to be good. And this time on the land was all about making sure that we're comfortable, making sure we had accommodation for friends and family, or
Building
maybe people who were going to
contacts.
help us.
Yes.
So it's all about like establishing where we are on the land. And also you have to realize that it's important to live here for a little while to figure out where things should go. And we've moved the van, I think three or four times.
3 times.
To different areas on the land.
Four times.
And now we know where we prefer the van. So it's really important just to live here a little bit, just explore the land. And now we kind of have a more clear idea of, you know, where we want things and where we want to position things and the infrastructure that we want to put into the land. So when we come back next winter, we can just crack on.
Crack the hell on. And I think on that cracking note, we're going to end the podcast, which has been a lot of fun.
It's been so fun. Yep.
Yes, who would have thought we'd have so much fun talking to each other.
And I've cooled down a little bit.
Yeah, I have. I've just felt a breeze, which is glorious.
We've got all the windows open that we can have open.
That aren't near us, so the breeze is over there. So,
but yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We have many more podcasts to come.
And I'm sure we look hilarious with headphones on, but it means that the sound levels are going to be way better because we can actually hear ourselves.
Exactly. It's really important to make sure the sound is decent.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No one wants a bad sounding podcast.
No. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you on the next podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you soon.